Morning, everyone. Welcome to Visualping's first webinar. I'm just going to give it just a couple minutes, and we'll let a few more folks trickle in. But feel free to, on the right-hand side, there's a chat. Feel free to get into the chat and maybe introduce yourself. We also have a Q&A section at the end of this webinar. And if you have any questions, please throw it into the Q&A section just underneath the chat button on the right-hand side, and we can try to answer all the questions at the end of the webinar. All right, we'll just give one more minute, and then I think we'll get started here. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. I see that there's quite a few of you here. Just a couple things, and on the right-hand side, there's a chat here. Please introduce yourself on the chat. Right below it, there's a Q&A section. And if you have any questions about Visualping, or we would gladly the opportunity to answer it. We're going to have a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Please put your questions in there. And actually, right below that, there's also, we're going to have a couple polls pop up. So right below that is a poll section. So if you click on the poll section, we have a couple questions just to find out a little bit more about yourself and what you're trying to get out of Visualping. It'd be great if you fill in some of those polls. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started here. So, quick intro. My name is Bethel. I'm on the customer success team, and today we're gonna talk about essentially a starter's crash course for visual pings. So um, what we're going to do is we're going to learn, go through the full life cycle. So we're going to figure out, hey, what does visual ping do? And we're going to create a job to monitor a URL. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we set things up, what all the different, comparison types are and things like that. And for those with, many URLs you want to monitor, we're going to go through, hey, how do I manage a large set of URLs I want to monitor? And from there, we're going to go through, what happens when visual ping detects a change. What do my notifications look like, and how do I now take that and action it? And the last thing we're going to touch on is some of the collaboration tools that you're going to have at your disposal to share with your team or your business and other users. So I'm going to switch gears here and get right into it. So visual ping, what does it do? Essentially, it monitors for a change on a web page. So really easy. You pop in at the simplest form, you pop in a URL, you hit create, and what visual ping does, it monitors that URL and lets you know if there's a change. So you don't have to go in manually and hit refresh to see if something changed on the web page. Visual ping does it automatically for you. So what does it look like? Oh, let me just switch into my little demo here. As you can see, this should look familiar. I know most of you have probably signed in and logged into Visual Ping. This will look very similar. On the left-hand side, for those on business plans, you'll get what we call workspaces, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But essentially, each of these are buckets for different jobs. And what is a job? A job is something where you monitor a URL. So you create a job, you put in a URL, and you can start monitoring that URL for changes. On this middle portion here, essentially, this is a list of your jobs. So on this demo, I have 2 that are active and 3 that are inactive. And active really means this job has been set up and it's running and actively monitoring for changes for that URL. Inactive means that, hey, I have this set up, but I put it on hold so it doesn't really run, and I'll activate it when I need to. So let's get into creating a job. So I'm going to click on new job here. And again, creating a job really means there's a URL I want to monitor. I'm going to create a job and pop in that URL. So in my case, I've set up something here, a web page, a sample web page here that I created for the purpose of your demo. And so you put in your URL, you hit the button go, and the embedded browser within pops up. So I'm just going to go into a tab just so that we can sort of compare. But in my regular browser, this is my test, and this is in my embedded browser. So I'm going to go through some of the basic options. So after you put in the URL, you can give the job a name. Simply, if you don't give it a name, it actually just defaults to the page title of the URL you're going to monitor. But I'm just going to call it test. And the next thing we want to look at here, I'm going to look at the frequency first. But what frequency means is how often do you want this job, so for Visual Ping, to check for changes. So by default, it's going to be daily, but you could do it up to every 5 minutes if you want, or up to every month. So a use case might be say if you're a day trader, or you're into cryptocurrency, and you really need to be up to date on the news, because you need to know if there's some new news that potentially you need to action. Every 5 minutes might be a good fit for that use case. But for most of you, I saw some, you're looking at laws or regulations or things like that. Perhaps it's daily. So every day, if I set to daily, it runs and it compares the web page, what it downloads compares to what it had downloaded previously before, which is the day before. If there's any changes, it'll notify you. So that's the frequency here. And the next step would be, we're going to choose a comparison type here. So there's 3. So I'm going to go through visual first. What visual means is Visualping will look at the prior run and essentially look at a snapshot of it and compare it to the new one. And pixel by pixel, it's going to ask, did anything change? And if something did change, if a logo moved to the right or the left, or it changed visually, it will notify you, hey, there's a change, you should look at it. So that's visual change. And if we go back up to here to the threshold, there's a few settings here. There's all the way from any change, which for visual really means, hey, 1 pixel change, I got to notify you of a change. So even if the color of something here changed from the black to another shade of gray, it's going to notify you if you set this to any change. And then the percentages go up. 1% means 1% of the pixels within the area of the page has changed, and it'll notify you. So think of threshold for visual as really sensitivity. So again, going back to sort of different use cases, if you are here monitoring different websites to see if these domains become active, say you're looking at your own domain to see if others have taken a similar name or domain as you, and they're all inactive, but you want to make sure when it becomes active that you're aware. You might not want any change because that's a little bit too sensitive. You might want to go up to medium or even major, because when a website becomes active from something that you can't connect to, it's going to look quite different. So that's sort of where the threshold comes into play here. So that's visual change, and that might be good for a lot of folks that are looking at images or logos. So if you are monitoring pictures to see if they change, or logos of companies to see if it gets a marketing refresh, visual change is probably for you. I'm going to go to text, and text is a little different. So, if you're looking at regulation changes or law changes, or you're even looking at news, and you're really looking at the text here to change, and you don't care so much for these logos and images, and my recommendation is to use text. Why? Essentially, text ignores the font changes, color changes, background changes, anything like that. It's really looking at the content here, and it only notifies you if the characters or the words or things like that change. So for text change, if you have that sort of use case, I think text change is something you should consider. I would highly recommend it. Most of our customers that are sort of in that use case of looking at laws and regulations and news, they'll be using text change. And part of the beauty of text change is if you are looking for a specific keyword that are added or removed, or even both, or phrases. So a popular use case would be if you are looking at inventory, and right now it says sold out, and you want to know when inventory comes back in, you can simply put the phrase sold out into here and say, hey, if that's removed from this web page, then notify me. In this example on my test page, obviously If I want to see something removed, I would look for, oops, click on edit, Visualping test. If that gets removed, then it'll notify me that this text gets removed. Anything else that gets changed, the logos down here, the images down here, it will ignore, and it'll only notify you of this. So really handy to have keywords, especially if, to really zoom in on exactly what you, the change you're looking for. So that's text. Now, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper for text, because right now I've set up text to look at this whole page for a change. And you might not, we might not want that. We might want to look for a subset. So under screen, under adjustments, there's screen, and it's defaulted to all page. I can select the area here. And then when I put my mouse over to the left, you could see it's hovering, over, when you hover over different sections, it's selecting a subset within the red box here. And when I click on it, it'll hold to it, selects a subset of the page. What this is telling Visualping is, within that red box, please monitor this section. Anything outside of it, please ignore. So really handy tool to essentially grab the subset of the page that you're looking, you want to monitor, that you're interested in. For text, this is great. A lot of times you're on a website with headers and footers or a sidebar or menus, and really you're interested in that middle section where there's a blog post or a list or things like that, or a table. So you could hover over and select that, and Visualping will monitor that and ignore everything around it. So for text, that is a really handy tool to have. I'm going to jump back to visual. I just want to point out, visual has the same thing. It works a little differently. Essentially what you can do, and this box is already selected, is I can move around this box because I selected area. It could be the whole page, and the box will disappear. But in this area, I can select just the logos, and I can shape this and sort of size it accordingly. And now what this is telling Visualping is only look in this box and ignore the rest. Now that's visual. So this is a good segue into element, because what element here, it's really detecting for visual changes as well. The only difference is, this is freeform and visual. I can move it around. I can, get it to exact size I want. However, if, the top section of this web page disappears, or it shrinks, or expands, maybe there's a new banner that pops up on web pages, all these things here will shift kind of down. And when I draw this freeform box, it sort of stays static because it's relative to the top edge and the left and right side edge of the page, and it'll shift down. And this is where element may be advantageous if you are looking for a visual comparison here. So I click on element. Again, it's for detecting visual changes, which is pixel by pixel. But now when I select this area, it's like text. I'm selecting these boxes that are preset by the web page and monitoring that subset. Now, if the top banner shrinks or disappears or something gets added, the advantage of using element is that it will, if things shift down, it will shift down with all these logos within this box with that shift, so that you won't get a notification that something's different, because nothing really has changed. Only the top part has expanded a little bit. So that's element compare. It's really, in summary, visual comparison, but you're selecting predefined boxes around instead of free form. So that is the compare type. And I kind of went into a bit of detail, but I think about your use case. Usually I ask my customers, hey, what are you looking to monitor? And if you're, into things that are news heavy or regulations or tables, essentially, things that are really text heavy and you're only interested in the content, I would suggest let's start with text compare, and let's select that, and we can monitor for those text changes. Okay, so those are that comparison, the comparison types. So let's get into some of the adjustments. I already sort of talked about the screen and how you can select the area or the page. The next thing I wanted to just point out for this 101 class is the wait time. So wait time is great for a lot of reasons. Essentially, it tells Visualping how long to wait before Visualping takes a snapshot and digests the whole web page. Defaults to 2 seconds, but sometimes there's websites that just load slower, or it's a table with a lot of data that loads and it takes time. If you're getting those types of web pages, you can always bump up the wait time to up to 7 seconds and allow that time for the web page to load, so then Visualping can capture the fully loaded page without getting just partial bits of the data or the page loading. So we'll grab the whole page, and so that's the wait time there. So we can change this to, let's say, 7 seconds, and it will reflect that in the embedded browser. So in my case, it's probably not going to make a big difference, but if you notice that the browser is not loading the full page, that's a good clue for you to look at the wait time and increase it. Over here, there are some actions that you can perform. So actions, think of actions are a way you can interact with the web page. When I click on here, there's many different types, and I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to go through some of the most popular ones here. This is actually a good way for me to just point out really quickly. On the bottom right-hand side, we have, if you haven't noticed already, we have lots of awesome articles here. On our Help Center, over 100 articles have been written. There's some videos out there too. But our Getting Started guide goes through sort of what I'm talking about with going through creating a job, the different modes of detecting a change and things like that. And it also goes through in details all these actions. So if you're taking lots of notes here, it's all written in our help article, and there's a lot of things you can search for in terms of specific questions. So know that you're not alone here. We have help right here to assist you, and if you're stuck, please don't hesitate. Send us a message, and someone on our support team will gladly try to answer your question. Okay, so that's the help, but I'm going to go through some of the basics of these actions. So a lot of these actions are for you to interact with the web page. So I'll just go on the wait time again. It's the same thing, but sometimes when you hit a search, while you perform an action, you might have to add additional wait time. So you can add 5 seconds here, things like that. So that there's also wait time under perform actions. Okay, so I'm going to go through the interaction part. One of the most popular things is the click and the type and some of the blocks. So I'm going to flip here to another, to illustrate this, to Wikipedia. I'm going to take away that wait time and let it load. So the type, essentially what the type action is it allows you to load something like Wikipedia, and type into the search bar and search for something. So I click on this little mouse pointer here, and I can now go over here on my embedded browser. Instead of red boxes, you'll see it's blue boxes. So I'm going to select and click here, and this is telling Visualping, hey, I'm selecting the search field here. And now I'm going to tell Visualping, hey, on this search field, type in the word I'm going to use for an example, Joe Biden. So now Visualping is going to run through these steps behind the scenes and load you that new page. So now with Wikipedia, obviously the search kind of pops up, and my next action, again, interacting with the page, is a click. And again, there's a mouse pointer here. I'll click on this, and I'll go right over to the blue box here, and I click on it. And now I'm telling Visualping, click on that first article that it came up with for Joe Biden. And now my expectation here is that it's going to load up that Joe Biden Wikipedia page. So these are tools where, think about, hey, maybe you have to log in and you have to type something, username, type in a password, and then click on login button, something like that. Or there's a cookie that pops up and you need to click on I agree. You can use a click and click that button, and that will click, I agree, and that cookie pop-up will go away. All right. The other thing here is another popular action is the block action. So I'm going to add a block. What is block? A little different than interacting with the web page itself. But what we can do if I click on this mouse here is we can start blocking certain things. Like in this case, I want to monitor this whole page, but you know what? I don't want to monitor the contents on the left here. So think of the block as selecting this box and telling Visualping, ignore certain sections of the page, but monitor the rest of the page, right? So the block is handy for doing that. So in a case where, again, there's a sidebar, there's a header, or there's a footer, telling it to block one of those things might be advantageous, or menu, because those things may change. The menu may change, your header may change, or your footer. But if you're only monitoring, the rest of the page, you don't care about those things, perhaps you can block those things so that you don't get alerted of those things changing because it's not relevant to you. So that is the block action. So now the whole side has disappeared. So now you put in these actions. We've selected text. And we've gone through some of these adjustments. And now we're ready to create the job, and simply as clicking this button, and it creates that job. I'm not going to click on it quite yet. There's a couple more tabs right here. So again, these are optional, and I'll just get into the notification tab. By default, Visualping will email you. So the email address you use to sign up for Visualping, it'll send you an email when something on this page, this Joe Biden page, has changed. So it runs every day. We set it every day. So we create it. The next day it runs. If there's a change, it'll email you to say, hey, something has changed for text. It'll email you. If you want to be texted that something has changed, you have the option of selecting text as well. You can be notified in multiple ways, and you can choose multiple ways to be notified. So in this case, I'm getting email, texted, Slack, a little overkill, and Google Sheets. Quick note, if you are on a personal plan, you'll probably see these advanced options kind of locked out. So these are for business users. So if you have Slack, what Visualping can do, and you don't want to get emailed or you want both, you can connect it with Slack and select a certain channel where you want to post these notifications to. Google Sheets is a handy one for businesses. So what it does is if you want to put it into Google Sheets, all your notifications will be logged as a row of data on your Google Sheets. And so you can just look at your Google Sheets for the history of your notifications and look at it that way. So that's really handy, especially if you have lots of URLs you are monitoring. Teams is the same as Slack, depending on just the application you use. And we also have a generic webhook. So if your company has webhook integration to your own in-house software, then by all means, you can generate a webhook from there, and Visualping will post a notification through there. And as another aside, just a reminder, if you want more details on how to integrate with Slack, Google Sheets, and Teams, again, under help, I can look up Slack, and there's an article on how to integrate with Slack. Same thing with Teams and Google Sheets. It'll show you step by step on what you need to do to set up those type of integrations. But lots of integrations available. But by default, we're going to focus on the email and how it emails you, and I'll show you what a notification looks like really shortly here. The schedule tab, again, this is something really handy. So especially for folks working in using Visualping for businesses, perhaps you don't want it to just run by default 24/7 every day. Maybe you want it to run just on Monday through Fridays, right? So hey, check every day, but skip Saturday and Sunday. No one's looking at it. Skip that part and run on Monday again. You can customize it. It'll shrink it to we have some presets, but what's important is sometimes what I see is, hey, let's run it every workday, but I like, my workflow is I want to get into the morning, and first in the morning, I want to check for changes. Well, perhaps maybe we can create a window here on local time to run between 5 and 8 a.m. So when you're ready to go to check, you can just look at your notifications in the morning and knowing that it's run earlier in the morning for you. So you can select a window here, or subsequently you can select it at night. Whatever the case is, the scheduler is a way to really narrow down how or when you want Visualping to run your checks. And then after that, I think we're ready to create the job. You create, and now my test job for Wikipedia here has been created, and as you can see, it's going to run once. And what that does is it creates the initial grab of the data and the images and things like that, and it will run and load it into here to give you a preview, because the next time it checks, it needs something to compare to, and now you've created a job. So perfect. So great, we created one job, but in your case, maybe I have 50 jobs to create, or maybe I have hundreds, or I've seen folks have thousands. What can we do? Do we create it one by one through this? The short answer is no. On the business platform, because businesses usually have lots of URLs to monitor and lots to manage, we've created a lot of bulk actions, and one of the bulk actions is the bulk import. So on this top bar here, if I hover over here, it says bulk import. I click on this button. Looks very, very similar to creating a new job. Right-hand side is basically identical. So I'm not going to go over this. But the left-hand side, essentially, instead of an embedded browser, it's sort of a spreadsheet, 2 columns separated by space. So the first column is your URL, as you can see in this example, and the second one is an optional description, which is the name of the job that it's going to use. So if you leave the right hand second column blank, it'll just default to the page's title. If not, you can fill in the desired name for it. So what I would recommend is set up a spreadsheet with Excel here. I set up a simple example. As you can see, I'm just mimicking essentially 2 columns, right? Column A is the URL, column B is the description. And I'm simply going to copy these 3 URLs over to here, and I hit paste. And now it's copied in here, and I can create this on mass. I can change all my settings to exactly what I want, text, I can change my schedule, things like that. And when you hit create, it'll create now my 3 jobs. So if you have a list, my recommendation is put it on a spreadsheet, your URL and your description, and then you can use the bulk import and create all those jobs at once. And it saves you a lot of time and streamlines your work that way. Now, creating it, so that's how you create it on bulk. Again, on the business platform, available to you are bulk edit options as well. So after you created those jobs, maybe you want to do some tweaks. Over here, I can select all my jobs, all my active jobs, or just jobs on this page. By simply clicking here, and I can now edit multiple jobs in one go here. So in my case, I probably don't want to edit my inactive jobs. So I know I selected all of these by clicking the top button here, but I can use this and filter out for just my active jobs. So now it's selecting these 6 jobs. And now I can click on this job setting button or down here. It'll pop up a familiar window. The one different thing is it's Visualping warn you, hey, you're editing 6 different jobs. You say, click on yes, continue. And now I can say, you know what? Instead of running this, I don't know, every day, I need to run all these jobs every hour. So I'm going to select the frequency of every hour. I'm going to hit save. And now what I've done is all these jobs that I created to run every day, I've edited it now to run every hour. So really handy tool you can even edit your different actions and things like that, but really handy tool to edit and change your jobs en masse. So if you have 50 jobs or 100 or all your jobs you want to edit, simply select here, or even individually select the ones you want to edit, click on the job settings, and you're ready to edit those jobs. On this bar here, you'll notice that once you select some jobs here, you get different options here, right? Because over here you get the bulk import and things like that. But when you select something here, this changes. So what you also can do is you can select jobs to, let's say, deactivate, right? I want to make a couple of these inactive. So I'm going to pause, right? And now these 2 jobs are selected have gone to the bottom here. I can reactivate them as well. I'm going to hit activate here. I can also, delete. Let's say these jobs are redundant. I don't want them anymore. There's also delete. My recommendation is when you delete something, it's basically gone. So if you don't mind having it in inactive, because you might activate it at some point in the future, I would just deactivate those jobs and keep it at the bottom here instead of deleting it. But deleting it would just clean this list up a little bit. And the last thing I wanted to point out are labels. So For those on business plans, you can assign labels to your jobs. And why is this important? Labels will help you keep your jobs organized. So, if let's say you have different regions you're working on within your workspace here, it's Asia Pacific and some of it's North America. You can create Asia Pacific and label these jobs as a certain label, and then label other jobs as another label. So in my case, I can select these 3 jobs, go into labels, and I pre set up a label called Visualping demo. And now these things get this label. And what's also useful about labels is this top bar here is essentially a search and filter bar. So if I click on filter, I can see all my labels at the top and go, what are all my Visualping demo labels here? And all the jobs get filtered out, and only the ones with the Visualping demo label is shown. So clear that. And then same thing, I can look for a test, right? And it'll only show the ones that are labeled test. So having set up the proper labels, you can quickly filter in for certain jobs or URLs that you're looking for. To expand on this, these filters not only do labels, but you can look for, hey, what jobs have I've seen that have changed in the last week, and it'll give you the jobs that have changed in the last week, or what are all my visual jobs, so on and so forth, right? So there's lots of filters. And the last thing up here, what I'm pointing out, I'm gonna clear my filter, is I can now search for jobs, whether it's by the URL or the job name. So what are all my Wikipedia jobs here? Oh, I got 3 here. So I search for Wikipedia. It might be the job title or the URL, but it'll pop these things up in the search list. So really handy tool to look for something specific, especially if you have hundreds or thousands of jobs, to search for it. So that's search, and that's the labels, and know that you can do this en masse and label things with our bulk edit. All right. And the last thing for bulk, I wanted to point out really quick was for those, again, on business plans, you have the concept of workspaces. And essentially each workspace is a different bucket that has different jobs on. So for me, Bethel demo, and I focus on this one, Bethel test, completely different web pages, and I have access to both of these. Now, as for those on business plans, there's also different roles. So as an admin on this role, I'll see all my workspaces, but as a regular user, the admin might only assign, Bethel demo to that user, and that user only has access to that. So it's a good way to sort of separate jobs that only make sense for certain users to edit, and multiple users can have access to one or more workspace. And you're, as an admin, you're really at control. You can control who gets to have who has access to what workspace. So as an admin, I can go on the right-hand side and click on users, and I can assign, you see my other email here, has only access to Bethel test. I can assign Bethel demo as well and save it. And when I log in as on this email, I only have access to those 2 workspaces. Going back to the dashboard really quickly, for the bulk edit, what's handy here is that I can start moving one or more, let's say these 2 Wikipedia jobs. I can say, click on move, and I can now move, hey, these jobs were created under Bethel demo. I want to move it to Bethel test. And I can click on confirm. And now those jobs disappeared off the demo here, and it's moved over to the test workspace here. So though that's workspaces. So we've covered how to create a job, some of the bulk actions, right? Bulk import to create lots of jobs at once, and how to edit things en masse. Now we have all our jobs created, and now we want to run our jobs and get a notification. So I've created these two examples, one's for text change and one's for visual change. They've already run, as you can see, and they've given me a notification. So we talked about the different notifications, but we're going to just focus on the email portion here. So I'm going to just switch over to my email. Just bear with me for a sec as I pull up my email. Okay, so I know this is a little bit small, but this is my email here. And what has happened is this, we'll start with visual. This job has run, it detected a change, and it's emailed me right here. So when I get the email, I'll click on it, and it tells me, sorry, I'm just going to expand on this. Hey, there's a change here. Please take a look at it. And the email gives you quite a bit of information. You can click on here to essentially go to the page that the URL that you've been monitoring. It also gives you a quick overview of what's changed. So in the red, it highlights sort of something got moved over here. And you can view those changes in detail, which brings you back to the Visualping dashboard, or again, access the site. So that's the email notification you're going to get. And when you pop back up to the dashboard, it's going to give you something more in detail. So over here, your latest change, I can click on the eye here, the eye icon. And this is a bit interactive, but if I push my mouse to the left-hand side here, it's going to give me the before look. And when I push it to the right, it's going to give me the after. So you can see that stay in the know banner logo kind of shifted over to the left. So that is the visual change, and that's the change detected. So not only does it tell you that, hey, there's something that changes, but it tells you exactly what's changed. So you know, hey, this is important. I need to action this. Going back to the email, the text change looks slightly different, but pretty much the same here. Again, Visualping will just give you all the links you need to look at the site and view the change on the dashboard. What's different here is, instead of presenting you an image of what's changed, it's really telling you, this is the text being added, and it's highlighted in green here. So it's really, again, because of text change, it's really just providing the text and telling you what's changed. So if I go to the dashboard here, to get a little bit more detail on this example, it's going to open up, the characters here, the text change. So again, it's showing the same thing, but sort of giving you a bit more context in the dashboard. Is it's telling you exactly what's added. Green is added. If had any removed text, it'd be red crossed out. But here I've added something, so this is what's changed. This is what's been added. Very clear as to what has changed here. For text changes, you can also have the option here to check, visually what's happened, and it'll do the same thing. But It's going to give it to you again in sort of a different context. It's showing you the before here as you go to the left, and then the after. And I have an example here that shows you both. So this gives you, just to illustrate it, hey, something has been removed from the red and the crossed out, and something has been added here. And so that's what you're going to get for the text change. So very clearly, you'll be notified of something that's changed and what has been changed. So that's sort of the full life cycle. Now it's checked for the change, and now it's giving you a notification, and now you know exactly what's changed. So that's sort of the power of that full life cycle of using Visualping. So the last thing I want to touch on really quickly here is, again, for folks on business plans, you might have hundreds of jobs, even thousands, right? And so how do you manage that? When you have thousands of jobs, you might get potentially, 100 notifications. And do you want to go through a list of emails, clicking away through those emails to check for those changes? We've provided for our business users sort of another workflow, an alternate workflow here. And it's called reporting. And it's very popular with our business customers. Most of them use it for sure. And, the question you have to ask yourself, back to, it's sort of like the frequency, is when there is a change, do you have to know right away? And if the answer is yes, then those notifications, those emails are important. You would open the email right away and see what's changed, right? If the answer is no, actually, maybe your workflow is, I just want to check once a day on all my changes and work through them, and then go through them and see what I need to action. Or maybe it's once a week. I'll let Visualping run for every day for a week, and then let's say on Monday, I'm going to come in the morning and I want to look at those changes and go through them and action them. And so actually that's a very popular workflow most of our business customers has, is we don't need to know right away, but I want to work through them on a regular cadence. So going back to the dashboard here under reports, I can click on this, and let's say we do want to create a report to change. Let's see what's changed since last week. And I'm going to hit generate. And the advantage of the report, the random report here for today, is that you're going to get these notifications all in one single page. You're not going to click through emails to sort through all that. It gives you the before and after of all the changes here. And you can click on the URL here to go to that URL or view it back in the dashboard, just like the emails. But it's streamlined. You come in Monday morning, and this is what's changed since last week. You go through it. I care about this. I don't care about that. And you are work through it a lot quicker, and then you're done. So it really streamlines that type of process. You can also download it into Excel format, and it'll provide those same links in Excel format for you to take a look at. So reporting really helps kind of, if you have that workflow, that cadence you want to work through, I highly recommend using a report, running a report, let's say for the last week, and working through that report instead of going through the emails. You can always keep your email notifications in your inbox, maybe have a filter that moves those emails to a separate folder and keep it as sort of a historical view of things. But know that you have the reports that you can run at any time to work through all those changes. Next thing is, to make it even easier, you can schedule it. So I can schedule it for every Monday. Email me a report. And so every Monday now, on the email I signed up with, it'll give me a link to that same report here. Every week, a new report gets emailed, and I can look through it, click on the link, look through the report, and work on my changes. And so that's the reporting for business plans. So I know I went through quite a bit. I went through the full life cycle of creating a job. What are the bulk edit, bulk update features? How do we deal with notifications of changes and reporting? I want to just go back to the help here. Know that, hey, I talked about a lot of things. If you haven't done so, go to the Getting Started guide. It's going to go through, the same thing. If you miss something, you have a couple things you thought about later on. Chances are, in this article, it'll answer some of your questions about, how to use Visualping. The last thing I want to just mention here is I'm just going to go back to my presentation here. I'll put it in slideshow mode. I talked a little bit about, if you're on a business plan, you get this. Yeah. So if you're on a personal plan but you're using it for business purposes, please check out Visualping for Business. Again, there's these tools on that platform that allow you to manage lots of URLs and allows you to really streamline your process. So I do think it's a big time saver for businesses. And we have more details, obviously, on our webpage about what Visualping for Business is. But and the next thing is, hey, if you are interested and you want to reach out to us through this webinar, there's a contact us button at the bottom here. This will put you in touch with one of our folks on the team. If you need you want a demo and you want a trial of the Visualping for Business, then click on Contact Us, and someone will reach out, and we'll be happy to answer those questions or give you a demo and walk through Visualping for Business for you. And this brings us to the end of my bit of the presentation here on getting started with Visualping. Really thank you guys for joining here. I'm just gonna go quickly to the chat here in case there's any Q&A questions, but feel free to drop any questions on right now. I'll stay for a couple minutes. But it's been a pleasure to virtually meet all of you and have you join and take your time to join this webinar. I hope that this has been educational and useful for you. And as users of Visualping, we're here to really help you get the most out of what you need to in terms of your web monitoring needs here. And again, if you have any questions after the fact, please reach out to us. Click on Contact Us if you want to learn more about Visualping for Business. Okay. And yes, we'll share a recording of this event after this event is over. I see there are no Q&A questions. Okay, I think this brings us to an end. Once again, just thanks for everyone for attending and for joining us. And we will see you soon, and we will chat with you later. Take care, everyone.